Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the structure of DNA. We all know in the nature the most stable form of DNA that occurs in double helix form. Before going to the details of double helical structure of DNA and to understand the characteristic features of DNA double helix, let's see what are all the components that are present in DNA. There are 4 nitrogenous bases present in DNA. These nitrogenous bases are heterocyclic aromatic rings having different substituents. So what are these 4 nitrogenous bases present? There are 2 purines. They are adenine and guanine. These 2 are the purines. And these 2 purines are bicyclic structures. We also have 2 pyrimidines. They are cytosine, thymine, and in case of RNA, we have uracil. These pyrimidines are monocyclic structures. As I told you, in RNA, the thymine is replaced by uracil. And how this thymine and uracil are different only with respect to one methyl group. We can say that thymine is the 5-methyl uracil. That means at 5th position, there is a methyl group in the structure of thymine, whereas in uracil, there is no methyl group. And you will have uracil only in case of RNA, that is ribonucleic acid. So here we have the chemical structures of these 4 nitrogenous bases that are present in DNA. As I mentioned, there are 2 purines, adenine and guanine, which are the bicyclic ring structures. 2 fused rings are present in the structure of these purines. And the pyrimidines are cytosine, uracil and thymine. These are monocyclic ring structures. You can see the structural difference between this uracil and thymine. Thymine has the methyl group at the 5th position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th position. Here there will be the methyl group in case of thymine. So these are the 4 nitrogenous bases which are present in nucleic acid structure, whether it is DNA or RNA. Then what are nucleosides? These nitrogenous bases which are present in DNA or RNA, they are covalently linked to the sugar moiety. Here the sugar moiety is pentose sugar, and specifically if it is RNA, the pentose sugar is ribose. If it is DNA, this pentose sugar is deoxyribose. How this ribose and deoxyribose are different? At the 2nd position, the hydroxyl group is replaced by hydrogen. If it is ribonucleoside, this R is OH. If it is deoxyribonucleoside, then it is just the hydrogen. So these nucleosides are nothing but the nitrogenous bases are covalently attached to the 5-carbon atom sugar moiety, that is pentose, either ribose or deoxyribose. And the covalent bond or the covalent linkage which connects this nitrogenous base and sugar moiety is glycosylic bond, or it is also called as glycosidic bond, glycosilic or glycosidic bond. As I told you, the bases are covalently attached to the 1st position of pentose sugar moiety to form the nucleoside. In RNA, it is ribose, whereas in DNA, it is 2-deoxyribose, where the hydroxyl group at the 2nd position is replaced by hydrogen. The point of attachment to the base is 1st position in case of pyrimidines, 9th position in case of purines. This is what I am talking about. The point of attachment to the base is 1st position in case of pyrimidines, and it is N9 position in case of purines. So 9th position that is N in case of purines. And here the numbers to the atoms in case of this sugar moiety are designated as 1 dash, 2 dash, etc. That is just to distinguish these atoms from the atoms of the nitrogenous base. So when we refer the atoms of the nitrogenous base, we refer them as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. Just to distinguish these atom numbers in case of the ribose ring, we refer to them as 1 dash, 2 dash, etc. So as we discussed, the bond between the bases and the sugars is glycosylic or glycosidic bond, which is the covalent bond. If the sugar is ribose, as in case of RNA, these nucleosides are technically called ribonucleosides. So we have 4 different ribonucleosides. They are adenosine, guanosine, cytidine, and uridine. If the sugar is deoxyribose, as we see in case of DNA, the nucleosides are 2-deoxyribonucleoside, or they are 2-deoxyribonucleosides. Like ribonucleosides, they are deoxyribonucleosides, and the examples are deoxyadenosine and so on. Here, the nucleoside of thymine is called thymidine or deoxythymidine. We don't need to specifically call this nucleoside of thymine as deoxythymidine because there is only one thymidine present. Anyway, we will not see this thymidine in case of RNA. So instead of calling it as deoxythymidine, we can call it as thymidine. What are the nucleotides? The next structure what we see in case of DNA is nucleotides. These nucleotides are nothing but the nucleoside. Till here this moiety is the nucleoside. Nucleosides are attached with one or more phosphate groups. It can be the 5' position, 3' position, or 2' position. So it can be one or more phosphate groups if they are covalently linked to the 5th position of the pentose sugar. These are called nucleotides. So if it is the deoxyribose sugar, we call it as 2-deoxyribonucleotide. One example given here, this particular example is deoxyadenosine 5-triphosphate, DATP. This is the structure of DATP. I hope you are able to recollect that this ATP or DATP, or in general we call them as DNTPs, are the precursors for the synthesis of DNA. Similarly, we have ribonucleotides in case of the RNA. So here the example given is cytidine. This is attached to one phosphate group at the 5' end of the sugar moiety. So here the example given is cytidine 5-monophosphate. There is only one phosphate group attached to the 5th position of the sugar. So this is cytidine 5-monophosphate, that is CMP. If that is diphosphate, say for example, with cytidine only, if 2 phosphates are attached, that's going to be CDP, cytidine diphosphate. So these are the nucleotides, which are nothing but nucleosides with one or more phosphate groups attached to the sugar moiety, usually at 5' position or 3' position, or it could be 2' position. It is a nucleoside with one or more phosphate groups bound covalently to the 3', 5' or 2' position. If the sugar is deoxyribose, then these compounds are termed deoxyribonucleotides. And chemically, these deoxynucleotides are the phosphate esters. In the case of 5' position or 5' position, up to 3 phosphates may be attached. So one example what we looked at is adenosine 5-phosphate or deoxyguanosine 5-phosphate. So they could be abbreviated as ATP or DGTP. So ATP would be the precursor for the synthesis of RNA, whereas DGTP is the precursor for the synthesis of DNA. In the same way, we can also have the nucleotides like DCTP, UTP, DTTP. So as I told you in the previous slide, this DTTP can also be written as TTP, because DTTP means deoxythymidine triphosphate. We don't need to mention deoxy because thymidine triphosphate is present only in DNA. We do not see its presence in RNA. So for the simplicity sake, you can simply write it as TTP, thymidine triphosphate, which is actually deoxythymidine triphosphate. So in case of mono and diphosphates, they could be abbreviated as, for example, adenosine monophosphate, deoxyguanosine diphosphate, which means DGDP. These nucleoside 5 triphosphates, commonly in short form, we can write as NTPs, or deoxynucleoside 5 triphosphates. In short, we can write them as DNTPs, which means NTPs or DNTPs. They are the building blocks of the polymeric nucleic acids. We all know these nucleic acids are the polymers of nucleotides. So what are these nucleotides? DNTPs in case of DNA, NTPs in case of RNA. During the process of this DNA or RNA synthesis, what happens? From this triphosphate, two phosphates are split off in the form of pyrophosphate, and only one phosphate that gets incorporated into the nucleic acid chain. So if you recollect the mechanism of DNA synthesis, as the polymerization is going on, by utilizing these DNTPs as precursor during the DNA synthesis, two phosphates in the form of pyrophosphate will be released, and only one phosphate per nucleotide gets incorporated into the nucleic acid chain. So the repeat unit of DNA or RNA chain is a nucleotide, which is similar to the amino acid as in case of proteins. So here the repeat unit or building block of this nucleic acid is a nucleotide. What are these phosphodiester bonds? Just now we were discussing that these nucleic acids are polymers of nucleotides. That means there should be some way by which all these nucleotides are connected. Just for the analogy, if you look at the proteins, we all knew very well that these are the polymers of amino acids. There, all these monomers, which are the amino acids, they are linked together by means of peptide bond, right? So similarly here, in case of nucleic acids, which are the polymers of nucleotides, the monomeric nucleotides are linked together by means of phosphodiester bond. Two nucleotides are linked together by means of covalent linkage through the phosphate group of 5' hydroxyl group of one nucleotide and 3' hydroxyl group of the next nucleotide. To be precise, the ribose sugar or deoxyribose sugar. So here several nucleotides are linked together by phosphodiester bond. This is the covalent linkage which is formed between the 5' hydroxyl of one nucleotide and the 3' hydroxyl of the next nucleotide. So that is how any nucleic acid chain you take, that will have a direction in 5' to 3' direction. So the DNA or RNA molecule, what you see is deoxyribonucleotides or ribonucleotides joined together into polymer by the covalent linkage of phosphate group between the 5' hydroxyl of one ribose and 3' hydroxyl of the next. And this bond or linkage is called phosphodiester bond. Here the phosphate is chemically in the form of a diester. That is why a nucleic acid chain seem to have a direction. So any nucleic acid chain of whichever the length, it has a free 5' end, and this free 5' end may or may not have any attached phosphate groups. In addition, it also has free 3' end, and this 3' end, the free 3' end is most likely to be free hydroxyl group. And at neutral pH, each phosphate group that contributes single negative charge. So that is why these nucleic acids are termed as acids, because they are anions of strong acids. So altogether, these nucleic acids are highly charged polymers. Why? Because each phosphate group that contributes a single negative charge, and they are the acids because they are anions of strong acids. That is why these nucleic acids are described as highly charged polymers. So those are the different components of the DNA. What did we discuss so far? The 4 nitrogenous bases, 2 purines, 2 pyrimidines, adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine, and of course uracil in case of RNA. Then they get covalently linked to the pentose sugar, ribose or deoxyribose, by the covalent glycosidic or glycosylic bond. Then these nucleosides may get covalently attached to one or more phosphate groups, and they form nucleotides. These nucleotides are the monomers which are joined by the polymeric linkage, that is phosphodiester bond, to form the polymeric nucleic acids. So these DNTPs or NTPs are the precursors for the synthesis of these nucleic acids, either DNA or RNA, and it has the direction, that is 5' to 3' direction. At the 5' end, there will be a free it could be with the phosphate group, or it may not have the phosphate group, but it has free 5' end and free 3' end, and this the free 3' end is usually the free hydroxyl group. So now we need to discuss about the double helical structure of DNA. So the most stable form of DNA, it exists in the double helix conformation. This double helix structure of DNA was deduced by James Watson and Francis Crick in the year of 1953. So what are the characteristic features? I'm sure you all would have studied definitely at BSc level. It's going to be more or less the same thing we will be studying here. So what are the characteristic features? There are 2 strands which are wound around each other following a helical path, and both these strands are anti-parallel to each other. That means if one strand runs in 5' to 3' direction, the other strand runs in 3' to 5' direction. And they wound around each other following a helical path, and it results in the right-handed helix. And all the nitrogenous bases are present. They are stacked one above the other. They are stacked one above the other, and per turn there are about 10 base pairs are present. And the negatively charged sugar phosphate backbone, they lie outside the structure, whereas the nitrogenous bases are, as I told you, stacked one above the other in the center of the helix. And how these both the strands are held together? They are held together, there is no covalent linkage, sorry. These 2 strands of DNA are held together by non-covalent linkage. There is no covalent bonding. Here the non-covalent linkage is the hydrogen bonding between the base pairs of the opposite strands. So one base belongs to one strand, and it forms the hydrogen bond with the other base of the opposite strand. And while forming this base pairing also, always there is base pairing between purine and purine and pyrimidine. And this purine and pyrimidine base pairing also always the C base pairs with G by forming 3 hydrogen bonds, and A base pairs with T with 2 hydrogen bonds. And why always this base pairing is between like a purine and pyrimidine, and always C base pairs with G forming 3 hydrogen bonds, and A always base pairs with T forming 2 hydrogen bonds? That is because of the structure of the bases and the structural constraints which are imposed by the backbone structure of DNA. Only the base pairing will take place between the bases of similar structure and dimensions. If the base pairing takes place in this way, then only any sequence can be accommodated within the double helical conformation of DNA. So these are the important structural features of double helical structure of DNA. In addition, you would also see minor groove and major groove, which are formed between the backbone structure of the DNA. And here, this diagram shows the stacking of base pairs in the center of the helix, one above the other. So I think we discussed most of the point. Base pairs here, which are stacked one above the other in the center of the helix. Both the strands wound around each other following the helical path, which will result in the right-handed helix, right? And they are anti-parallel to each other. Let's see. Most commonly, this occurs in nature as well-known double helix. Basic features were deduced by James Watson and Francis Crick in the year 1953. As we discussed, 2 separate chains of DNA wound around each other, each following the coiling path or helical path, which will result in right-handed double helix. The negatively charged sugar phosphate backbones of these molecules, they are on the outside, and the planar bases of each strand, they stack one above the other in the center of the helix. Between the backbone strands, you would see the major groove, minor groove, they also follow a helical path, and these 2 strands are joined non-covalently by hydrogen bonding between the bases of opposite strand in order to form the base pairs. There are about 10 base pairs per turn in DNA double helix. The 2 strands are oriented opposite direction. That means they are anti-parallel to each other in terms of their 5' to 3' direction. And most importantly, the 2 strands are complementary in terms of sequence. This last feature, the complementarity of the sequence, that is because the structures of the bases and the constraints of the DNA backbone that dictate that bases hydrogen bond to each other as only purine and pyrimidine. And this purine pyrimidine base pairing also happens in case of in case of bases that have very similar geometry and dimensions. So as we have seen, guanine always pairs with cytosine by forming 3 hydrogen bonds, and adenine pairs with thymine by forming 2 hydrogen bonds. So that's how any sequence can be accommodated within the regular double-stranded helix structure. So here these structures show how the hydrogen bonds are formed between the base pairs. This is adenine and thymine base pairing. There is formation of 2 hydrogen bonds between this purine and pyrimidine. Similarly, the base pairing between guanine and cytosine. So there are 3 hydrogen bonds formed between this purine and pyrimidine. So always this base pairing takes place in this way only, and both the strands will have the complementarity sequence. That means the sequence of one strand can determine the sequence of the other strand. And the complementarity of these sequences of the strands is the basis on which the mechanisms like the DNA replication and transcription they rely on. The same information, the sequence of one strand specifies the sequence of other strand. This forms the basis for the mechanism of DNA replication and transcription. So I think I would stop here before going to the polymorphic forms of the DNA. So whatever the features we have discussed in this class, they are the characteristic features of the most stable form of DNA. So this is referred to as B form. All these features, whatever we discussed, they are all the features of the B form of the DNA double helix. The other polymorphic forms of the double helix DNA are A form and Z form. So now we will see what are the differences of this A form and Z form with respect to B form, which is the most stable form. We will see the other characteristic features of these polymorphic forms. Do you have any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Is it fine?